Parts for this video, there is talk about blood, parasites, so if you're sensitive to stuff like that, I would not recommend you watching this video. Hi guys, it's me Isela, and today I want to talk about kind of the process of adopting a dog in Mexico and what I had to go through. When it comes to culture, the US and Mexico have always looked at each other for inspiration. It's the point where the Day of the Dead is celebrated here and Halloween is celebrated in Mexico. But when it comes to pet culture, it can't be more different. In the US, there's laws where you must have your dog on leash, places that your dog can and can't go, as well as the social aspect of owning a pet. Especially for dogs, they're usually confined in the yard and usually spend most of the time living indoors. As well as dogs having their own vet where they see either monthly or every few months, make sure they're in good health, and if something ever happens to them, there's medicines for them. Compared to Mexico, dogs tend to roam around everywhere. There's a higher number of strays. Dogs spend most of the time outside, and it's usually looked down upon if you have your dog inside. And in some cases, dogs have never visited the vet. There has been plans that the Mexican government has put in place as neutering dogs and making sure they have all their vaccinations to keep the health of the public. But again, the culture between owning a pet is completely different to the one in the US. Last time I went to Mexico, I completely fell in love with the puppy, and I brought her back to the US. Yet, it was a roller coaster of emotions that I'm still on. I saw her and I completely fell in love with her, and I knew that I had to bring her back home. But when I picked her up, I noticed that she had a matted part of her fur. And then I asked the person, why was it matted? They came up to the conclusion that they think that she got bitten by another dog. We took her to the local vet and he shaved around the area, and in fact was that she had gotten bitten by another dog or some other animal, and luckily the area was already healed and he just cleaned it to make sure that no infection surfaced, as well as getting her dewormed. Deworming is a standard practice in the US, and when a puppy or a kitten turns 8 weeks, you take them to the vet, they get dewormed, and as well as their first round of vaccinations. After getting dewormed, she did end up having these long white worms or parasites in her stool. So luckily, it was cleaning out her intestine, making sure there was no parasites in there, and she was eating properly at the time. So after that, I thought that with that round of deworming, she was gonna be fine. Like everything was gonna be all right. She was gonna be healthy and everything. The vet told us down there that you should deworm your animals every few months. I think it was between 4 to 5 months, depending on, and of course you can also take advice from your vet, but that was what we were told from the vet in Mexico. And I thought that she was going to be fine, that I was just going to have to take her to the vet and get her routine vaccinations, get her a little checkup, get her neutered, and everything would be fine. But I was wrong. I took her to her local vet where, they did her checkup, routine vaccinations, and my poor baby had roundworms and Giardia. Giardia and roundworms are worms and parasites that usually attack the intestine and intestinal walls. And I wasn't surprised that they told us that she had this. If you have ever traveled to Mexico or any other country, you need to be very careful with where you get your water. When I go to Mexico, and I've been traveling to Mexico since I was basically a newborn, I always get my water from the convenience. Make sure it's bottled water. I never drink tap water or any water that does not come sealed in a bottle, because in Mexico, the water isn't treated as it is treated here in the US. Here in the US, it is safe for you to drink tap water, but if you do that in Mexico, you can run a risk of drinking contaminated water that can lead to you getting bugs that I sadly have gotten, and they are not fun at all. So the vet got her on some medication to kill the bacteria as a parasite, and it was so bad that when she pooped out more blood and mucus than poop itself. Luckily, she was eating, so at least she was getting some nutrition into her. And that wasn't the only problem that I was told she had. She had a hernia in where her umbilical cord was, and I was told that this is due to something that was just genetical, and it had to be fixed when she was getting neutered to avoid other injuries. In the US, we have shelters, and they make sure that the dog is healthy, that they're neutered, that anything that they need, is met before they're able to go for adoption. Here in Mexico, this is very hard because they have whole markets of animals, and they put a law that they had to be registered, some sort of like overseeing of those market that I've gone like last time, and I don't think that they're being met. There's, these laws are put in place, but they are not enforced. So it is harder. You run more of a risk that the pet that you do get in Mexico has many diseases. People buying pets on the border and the pet doesn't even last a week. So I would think twice if you do want to adopt a pet from Mexico, that your vet bills might be expensive, or you run the risk of the pet really not living so long compared to the US, because again, the US regulates stuff a lot, and there's laws in place of animal abuse and things like that to protect the pets. But compared to Mexico, they still have a long way to go when it comes to pet protection things. So that is my story of me adopting my dog in Mexico. Luckily, she is healthy. She's running around. Just a little quick thing. If you do plan on adopting a pet from Mexico and you're like, I'm so gonna do it and everything, just know that there's a new law in place when crossing over with your dog. Thank you for listening to my story about adopting my dog in Mexico, and maybe you might want to adopt one down there or even here in the US and, give a dog a forever home, or a cat. I also have 2 cats. So that is my story, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you think of adopting a pet from a shelter. Bye, guys.